I sometimes joke with my team that at Octane, the problem is you're never bored ever. Like if you're bored, you have you have a personal problem. But the problem is there's too many opportunities, which I know sounds crazy to say that it's not about deciding between A and B. It's deciding between 1 and 1.1 and 1.111. They're all amazing ideas. You just have to choose based on prioritization.
Welcome to Frank Growth. I'm Jason Shafton, and I run the growth consulting firm Winston Francois. Around here, we tell the truth about growing, the good, the bad, and the can't say it out loud ugly. Every episode, we get tactical with operators, investors, and builders about what works, what breaks, and what to do next. No fluff, no vanity metrics, no hustle theater, just signal. This is Frank Growth. Let's get into it. Today, we've got Seth Lowery and the $10 million rule. Before we bring Seth in, a quick riff on the topic. Most growth teams die from initiative overload. Someone pitches a new channel, the CEO reads an article about something, a board member wants to explore a partnership. Before you know it, you're running 15 experiments and none of them have enough fuel to actually work. Here are the three things I see go wrong. 1. Democratized priorities. When everything is important, nothing gets the focus to actually scale. 2. Resource fragmentation. A small team spread across too many bets means none of them get enough attention to prove out. And 3, success theater, celebrating small wins that don't move the business while the real levers go underfunded. What actually works is setting a minimum viable impact threshold and sticking to it. If it will not meaningfully move the number, don't do it. Protect your team's cognitive bandwidth. It is your most expensive resource. Treat it that way. And finally, kill good ideas that are not big enough. That is harder than killing bad ideas, and it matters a lot more. That's the frame we'll use today with Seth. Now let's get tactical. Seth, welcome to Frank Growth.
Hey, Jason. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. You are VP of Marketing at Octane, which is a fintech unicorn that has originated over $8 billion in consumer loans. What most people don't know, though, I think, is that Octane is not just a lending company. There's this SaaS layer underneath that powers the whole thing. And you run growth for both sides of that equation with what sounds like an obsessive level of focus. One thing that jumped out from our initial conversation was that you have a rule that new initiatives kind of have to clear a specific bar in terms of incremental originations to get approved. Most companies can't even agree on what a priority means, and you put a dollar sign on it. So I'm excited to have you here, and let's get into it. First question, Octane has originated over $8 billion in consumer financing. Are you a lending company or a tech company?
Yeah, so both technically. So we're a tech company, but we also have a best-in-class finance arm, and that's Roadrunner Financial. And that is an interesting distinction because it's really in the way in which we work, the value that we use to differentiate, and then also the types of people who we hire. So, at a typical finance company, they would have, I don't know, less than 10% of their company working in product and tech, but we're close to 50%. And so that's really how we kind of go to market with our hiring strategy to make us a tech company, not just a finance company. But how we differentiate is really our value and how we differ from a traditional finance company. So traditional finance company, they're competing by selling money cheaper or deeper with a higher risk credit. Our strategy is really to use digital technology and tools that we have built in-house, also our data science team, to really provide a best-in-class finance company. The way that we kind of phrased it in my 30-second elevator speech is that we're more than just a lender, right? So when our customers win, we win. I will say, just from a pure marketing perspective, it's made branding tricky, right? So it's like we get the question a lot because we're a house of brands, but we have very distinct and overlapping value props.
You have this rule that new initiatives must deliver $10 million in incremental originations to kind of get approved on your team. How did you land on that number?
Yeah, so I didn't come up with it. It's funny going, back down memory lane a little bit. It's the very first thing that Jason Gus, our CEO and co-founder, told me when I joined 4 years ago. Not even hello. Like, Seth, $10 million. That's kind of the threshold. And it was kind of funny because it's all about prioritizing impact, having a razor focus on what moves the needle. Very refreshing, just personally. Like my entire career, my goal, personal, professional goal has always been to emphasize bigger, better, fewer. I preach it to my team constantly ad nauseum. I'm sure they're so sick of me saying it. So to join a company with a very similar philosophy from the top down has been an extremely great fit.
What happens when someone brings you a growth idea that does not meet that bar, but feels like maybe it could be big?
Sure. So happens a lot, as I'm sure you're probably aware. I always feel like I'm dating myself, and a little funny when I say it, but it's like Pirates of the Caribbean, right? So it's really just a guideline, not a hard fast rule. We do things every single day. It's impossible to prove it's going to move the needle, right? Especially not to the tune of 10 million. Whether we choose to do it really depends on relationships and trust, right? So as I'm sure you're very aware, rarely in marketing things are black and white. Rarely can I put a very hard dollar number on a very specific tactic or campaign. And so it's really about trusting your intuition, trusting your experience, and trusting those that are bringing you the idea.
How has this rule changed the way your marketing team actually thinks about what to run and what to kill?
It's a daily reminder, right? So there's so much low hanging fruit, especially for a company growing as fast as us, right? So I sometimes joke with my team that at Octane, the problem is you're never bored ever. Like if you're bored, you have you have a personal problem. But the problem is there's too many opportunities, which I know sounds crazy to say that it's not about deciding between A and B. It's deciding between 1 and 1.1 and 1.111. They're all amazing ideas. You just have to choose based on prioritization. So it's really made us operate more like a traditional product or agency org where we have kind of P1, P2, P3s, right? We build out a prioritization list, and then we really list out a backlog for projects that don't make the cut. It forces us to take a long, hard look in the mirror and prioritize for the health of the company and not necessarily the marketing team. There's things that we do every single day where I'm like, I don't really know from a marketing perspective if that sounds very fun or if it really fits necessarily what we should be working on, but we know that it's in the health of the company.
There must be a no in there that you've had to give that was particularly tough, maybe a really hard one. How did you frame that to the team, and what was kind of the, if you can name a specific case, you're like, yeah, we can't do it, but it's a hard one to say no to.
Yeah, I always tell my team to let me be the bad guy. I don't want any of my teammates to be the bad guys, especially with internal partners. I would say, and this sounds like a very vanilla answer, but all of them are hard. Most of the time, I say most of the time because it's a lot of the time. We're usually saying no to something that we simply just can't do it based on bandwidth or based on a different project that's currently in flight. But usually, it's something I think we should do. So that's why it becomes so hard. Marketing at Octane is essentially a shared service, both internally and externally. And that's an important distinction because we're not really just leveraging our services internally, we're leveraging them for our partners. So, an example of that is, we're doing creative for Octane and Roadrunner, but we're also doing strategy for our white label partners, our dealer partners, our OEMs, right? All of these things. So sometimes we're saying no internally, sometimes we're saying no externally, and all of those have a ripple effect. But if you're holding my feet to the fire, probably the single example is usually saying no internally. It's usually in my nature to try to help with, you're talking about people that are rolling up their sleeves next to me every single day in the trenches, right? So it's the simple asks that I say no to that honestly crush me. So as simple as saying no to making a slide deck look better or designing a t-shirt for an internal event. I hate saying no to those things. I have to say no to those things, but it doesn't make it any easier.
You're a leader of a fully remote team. How do you create accountability and rhythm when everyone's all over the place and dispersed geographically?
I will say the philosophy is driven from top down. So from revenue leadership, it's really about managing the results. We don't manage the hours, right? So it's like, I don't really care how many hours you work on something. And to be frank, if you could do something in 20 hours, I think it's going to take you 40 hours. Not only am I going to say good job, but I'm going to ask you to teach me how you did it, right? So I don't really care when, where, how you work. I will say there's a caveat to that. I do love some, hey, are you free? Slack messages where I just think of it as like a drive-by question, right? So if you're in the office, I don't think my team necessarily likes them that much, but I love them. But we have digital tools to keep us all accountable, right? So we treat Slack as if you're in the office, you need to be available.
How do you define where sales ends and marketing begins at Octane? Or is that line kind of deliberately blurry?
Yeah, this is a great question because it's very close and near to my heart. So every conversation dating 20 years with every new person I've either worked with or I've ever hired in my career always starts the exact same way. Become best friend with sales. It doesn't mean we always agree, but we're a team, right? So I often tell people, I'll get into a heated debate with some of the other sales leaders, but it's always in good spirit. And it's always because we want the best for what is Octane. Now, the beautiful part about that is we're a team, right? So as soon as we wrap up that debate, we go and get gelato, right? And everything is back to normal, right? So not everyone agrees with me when I say this, but my opinion is that revenue is a team sport, right? Marketing can never, in my opinion, point to a success and said we did that 100%. I also strongly believe that sales can't say that either. right? There are so many variables and so many touch points that are driving that decision maker. The important thing is that as a team you're weighing, the important thing is not necessarily where the attribution lies. Now, how we operate with the sales team specifically is under kind of what I have coined the four-prong method: two sales, four sales, through sales, and then lieu of sales. So when I'm talking about two sales, sales is your first and most important customer as a marketer, right? So it's like, if you can't convince sales that the thing that you're trying to do will move the needle, then you're not going to convince your customer. So they're your first and most important customer by far. For sales, this is, I mean, toolbox marketing, right? I didn't come up with this, right? So give sales the tools they need. You have no idea what tool it is. Just give them the entire toolbox so that they can pick what it is to move the needle, right? Because I say this, jokingly, but like, I don't know what the score of Johnny's baseball T-ball game was, right? But they do. And the owner of the dealer or the merchant that they're working with, son is Johnny. So it's important that you give them the tools to move the needle without you actually being boots on the ground. And then through sales, right? So this is kind of like, the programs and promotions that they're effectively delivering, right? They're an extension of the marketing team. They are the revenue team. You as a group are the team themselves. So they're delivering it as an extension to drive success. Without them being this kind of what I'm going to call a messenger of a marketing initiative, it will fail every single time, right? And then kind of the last one, the fourth prong is in lieu of sales. So I call this air support, long tail, breadth and width, basically, right? Like interchange whatever synonym you have there. Marketing just has an extension that sales will never have because there's only so many hours in the day. So to be successful as a sales and marketing org and as a revenue team, we really operate under all four of those independent kind of philosophies.
When you're hiring for your team, are you looking for fintech experience or do you prefer people from other industries?
I'm pretty flexible, honestly. The only real qualifications I need to see are B2B experience. So B2B marketing is so much different than B2C, which right? So it's 10 customers doing a million transactions versus a million customers doing 10 transactions, right? So the mindset and stakes are so high, they're so different, and it's just a completely different way in which you look at your customer itself. So like, I can teach a marketer how to market a product, right? That's easy. But what I do believe is harder to teach is channel marketing, because that acumen, not only to market, but market through influence, is difficult. It's something that is very difficult to train, it's something very difficult to explain, right? So if I'm looking at like a wish list, and if I'm hiring and I only have one hire and I have to hit a home run, it's somebody that I know can hold their own in the room with a sales leader, a product leader, and a customer, and still make sure our marketing's point of view is heard.
Consumer lending is brutally competitive. Where does Octane's moat actually live?
Yeah, so it's really our Octane score and speed and ease, right? Those are our RTBs. So within seconds, we will give a consumer a real offer. It's a soft pull, right? Nobody wants their credit dinged. I don't. And so it's using our proprietary scoring system that looks at more than just FICO. That's an important distinction, right? Because a lot of companies out there, it's like, well, what's your FICO score? Ours is a combination of factors that really leads to an approval or denial. This has really led to our hockey stick growth, and it's really led us to expanding outside of our home market of power sports into other recreational markets.
You effectively have kind of three large customers: OEMs, dealers, consumers. How do you run the very different GTM motions at the same time?
It's difficult, right? Like, I'll be honest. The way that we built the team is, we touched on it earlier, but it's really to run very similarly to a large scale strategic marketing agency with an in-house creative arm. So the way that we've built it specifically, each customer gets a dedicated mind share from a marketer, a creative. The marketer is paired one-to-one with the GM of their respective customer. And then every quarter as a team, we meet to prioritize impact, always using that 10 million threshold as our North Star. But it's a challenge, right? It necessitates being able to be a player coach for every single one of my team members, right? That is a very difficult thing to do. You have to be able to strategize, influence, and execute at high levels and to very high standards. So, specifically, we have very point blank strategies for each of the different arms. So for OEMs, we really are kind of considering ourselves marketing as a service, right? So the goal is to move retail for them. This can be promotions, point of purchase, events, et cetera, right? Basically an extension of their marketing team, but with a focus on the finance arm. For dealers and for our merchant partners, it's all about door swings, right? So it's like, how are we getting people through the door? Because every company can do a finance offer, but our value is we're not just giving you a finance offer, we're giving you more customers. We're sending you leads. We're trying to get more units through your door specifically, right? So it's pure B2B channel marketing at its finest, right? So heavy dose of analytics, strategic incentive campaigns when needed, and then, email and traditional communication, right? So it's about awareness and where are you at in that funnel with us as a partner. And then consumer is a little bit of a misnomer at Octane, right? So yes, we have a consumer retail arm, but it's all through the merchant partner. So we use our award-winning digital tools, but it's really B2B to C, right? So from a marketing perspective, our goal is to really push the OEM and the dealer brands. And it sounds funny to say this as a marketer, but I protect our brand at all costs, but I want to hide it, right? So it's like our goal is to pump the success of our dealers and our OEMs, their brand, their success, right? If they win, we win. I'm happy to keep our brand in the background if we're hitting our targets.
What's one growth opportunity at Octane that most people maybe would overlook?
A loyalty. I think that's a pretty easy one, at least for me. We launched our first loyalty program at Octane a few years back. We saw immense success. Smashing success. Since then, it's really become a test bed where we're able to roll out new programs, risk tiers, marketing services, boutique campaigns. But in retail finance, loyalty is a two-way street, and we will continue to push the envelope with our loyalty program on how we can drive revenue for our most loyal partners.
So for other marketing leaders out there at high growth companies, what's the single biggest mistake that they're making with their prioritization?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would kind of boil it down to two key mistakes, right? So the first one is prioritizing tactics over strategy. I know this is very difficult to keep your eye kind of on that North Star, but specifically, how are you optimizing for what's easy to measure rather than what actually drives growth? And then the second one is pretty recent, I would say. This one kind of has come to light on my team, kind of some of the things I've been reading out there, and it's really about trend chasing. I'm sure you're having conversations every day, and this idea of chasing trends and marketing, right? Marketing is changing so fast. I read an article that marketing has changed more in the last 2 years on like the last 20 years combined or something crazy like that. And I think it's, we all fall prey to chasing the shiny penny, myself, included. I have to remind myself, keep your eye on the prize. But our goal is to be reactive when we try to plan as proactively as possible, right? So there's time to be reactive if you're proactively planning. So if you're planning for the chaos, then there's always time for.
Yeah. All right, Seth, this is my favorite part. So lightning round, quick questions, quick answers. You ready to do it? All right. So one metric that you look at every single morning.
Business side, I'm looking at application volume. The creative side, the Asana board.
What's the best channel for customer acquisition that most fintechs are ignoring?
Probably B2B merchant partners, right? So if you're investing in tools to drive customers to your merchant partners, then they have the power to choose us. And that's the one that's probably ignored the most. One of my favorite quotes is by Henry Ford: "Man who stops advertising to save money is like a man who stops the clock to save time." I don't know if you know that one. I have it written down on my wall in my office. But, I interpret this not as pure dollars spent, but rather as an investment of time made. So invest in your channel and you'll be rewarded.
All right, finish this sentence. The marketing leader who survives hypergrowth is the one who
shields their team. So something bad, that's on me. Something good, that's the team.
I love that. All right, Seth, this was incredibly tactical. Where can people find you and Octane online?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, always happy to connect with anybody that wants to connect. And then Octane or Roadrunner, both websites and LinkedIn.
Any offers or anything you want to share with Frank Growth listeners?
No, I think we're good. It's been a wild ride. And so for all of our partners out there, I'm excited that we're still on this journey together.
All right, Seth, thanks for coming on, man. This is great.
Likewise.
That was Seth Lowery, and a look at what happens when you put a dollar sign on discipline. Here are my quick top 3 from today. If you don't remember anything else, remember these 3. 1, the $10 million rule is a compass, not a cage. Seth's CEO gave him this number before he even said hello. If it doesn't deliver $10 million in incremental originations, don't bother. But as Seth explained, it's a guiding line, not a hard and fast rule. The real discipline is forcing your team to think in terms of P1, P2, P3 backlogs and prioritize for the health of the company, not the marketing team. His mantra: bigger, better, fewer. 2, revenue is a team sport. Run the four-prong method. Seth's framework for how marketing operates with sales. To sales, they're your first and most important customer. For sales, give them the full toolbox and let them pick the right tool. Through sales, they deliver your programs as an extension of the revenue team, not as messengers. And in lieu of sales, marketing provides air support, breadth, and long-tail coverage that sales simply doesn't have the hours to reach. 3, protect your brand, but be willing to hide it. Octane runs 3 simultaneous GTM motions: OEMs, dealers, and B2B2C, and Seth's goal is to pump the success of their partners' brands, not his own. If the dealers and OEMs win, Octane wins. That counterintuitive posture, protecting the brand at all costs while keeping it in the background, is what makes channel marketing work at scale. One action that you can do this week in 10 minutes or less: look at your marketing team's current project list and run it through Seth's filter. Ask one question for each initiative. Does this prioritize the health of the company or the comfort of the marketing team? If it's the latter, move it to the backlog or kill it. That's frank growth. If this gave you something you can use this week, follow the show and share it with one operator or founder who needs it. I'm Jason Shafton from Winston Francois. We help tech companies build sustainable, repeatable growth with a proven operating system. Show notes and takeaways are in the description. Be frank and keep growing.